Hey, it's Dr. Osborne here with another Friday Facebook Live, and today I want to dive into some advanced strategies for energy. Fatigue is one of the most common complaints people have, and of course our American lifestyles are horrendous as it relates to energy conservation. So let's talk a little bit about some of the fundamental strategies about energy and about having high levels of energy for you so that you can apply these over the weekend and feel better, have more energy, and feel great and do more. So, number one of the biggest mistakes that people make, that tired people make, that fatigued people make, number one is lack of sleep. Now, sleep is super critical for a lot of different reasons, and this may seem like a really no-brainer reason, but a lot of people say, I'm a night person, or I can get by on a few hours of sleep, or it's not that big of a deal. I can get by with 5 or 6 hours of sleep. But the reality is this: if you chronically deprive yourself of sleep, chronically being the key word here, because it's one thing to stay up late on a weekend or to stay up late one night here or there. I'm talking about chronic, meaning consistent patterns of behavior. So if you are staying up late consecutively, chronically, not getting adequate sleep through the night, this is one of the biggest factors in sucking your energy right out of you. Keep this in mind. The time frame our body heals, repairs, and recovers is between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Now, that doesn't mean go to bed at 10 and wake up at 2. What that means is you need to be sleeping between those 4 hours and preferably longer. So preferably longer on the side prior 10 and preferably longer on the side prior 2 a.m. So ideally, our body's biological clocks evolved around the sun, evolved around sunlight and sundown. Now, I haven't met a single human in 16 years of clinical practice who had infravision or the ability to see at night. So when we think about some people saying, oh, I'm a night person, I do better when I stay up really, really late and sleep really, really late. There's no real such thing as a night person. Your body's biological clock wants to sleep because it's between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. that your body releases hormones that help you heal, repair, and restore. And if you're not doing that consistently, if you're not getting that time frame of sleep consistently, what's going to happen, in a nutshell, what's going to happen is you're going to basically start to break down. So fundamentally, your body is going to start breaking down and becoming catabolic. And again, so 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., ideally go to bed when the sun goes down. Now, that can be really, really tough to do in the winter months, especially those of you who live in areas where there's a daylight savings time. But let's think about that for a minute. For most people, it's about 9:30 in the summer months, and then waking up when the sun comes up, which is typically somewhere around 6:30, again, in the summer months. So you've got this time frame or this window between 9 to 6 where there's more than 8 hours of potential sleep that you can get, and that's what your body knows and understands, and that's what your body wants. It's what it craves. In America, we live such fast-paced, go-go lifestyles. People want to shave the hours away from their sleep so that they can get more done, but what they don't realize is when you shave hours away from your sleep to get more done, you're actually less capable of doing more because your brain won't think as clearly, your energy won't be as loaded. And so what will happen is you'll be less effective. Your mind won't work as well. You'll have more brain clarity issues. You'll have more memory issues. You'll have more fatigue issues. So again, sleep is definitely one of the biggest factors in making sure that your body is capable of generating enough energy throughout the day. Now, many of you are coming on now. Jenny is chiming in. How do we ask questions right here? The way you do that is you just type into your Facebook feed there, type in whatever questions that you have, and we're going to start getting them answered as we start filtering those questions through. So if you guys have got questions, send them along, and I'll make sure I do my best within the next few minutes to get those answered. So again, sleep. Your circadian rhythm needs sleep between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., but preferably you need a good solid 8 hours of sleep, and that is within that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. time frame. If you're waking up at 1 a.m. every morning, or if you're going to bed at midnight every night and you're missing 50% of that 4-hour window, you're going to struggle with energy no matter what you do. And I have seen this repetitively in patient after patient. People are not getting the sleep or as Beverly's chiming in now, she's saying, I sleep 10 hours a day, but still tired. Okay, so Beverly, this may or may not be the solution for you, but it's the timing of that 10 hours. If you sleep from midnight to 10, you're missing 2 of the 4-hour window where we actually start to heal and repair. So you really want to get a solid 8 to 10 hours. In your case, you're already getting 10. Make sure it's within that time frame, because if it's not within that time frame, you're going to struggle. Now, of course, sleep is just one aspect to high levels of energy. Sleep is just one thing that we can do better with in order to improve our ability to have great energy. One of the other things that's oftentimes really overlooked in a very, very big way, especially if you live in the north, and that is sunshine exposure. Getting out in the sun regularly, getting out in the sun on a very regular basis is like charging your batteries. The sunlight itself, the UV light, actually helps to express mitochondrial function, which helps to drive and produce energy within your cells. So that sunlight exposure is actually very, very beneficial for energy. A lot of people are either staying inside, not getting outside. Where I live in Texas, it's really, really hot. We get the temperatures over 100 degrees in the summertime. A lot of people will avoid sunshine. They'll avoid going outside for a variety of different reasons, whether it's because the dermatologist told them they might get skin cancer, or whether it's because they just don't want to be in the hot weather. But you got to remember, sunshine is a very big factor in generating mitochondrial energy. And if you're not getting sun on a daily, consistent basis, you're actually working against your body's ability to be able to produce energy in the first place. So let's think about that for a minute. What is enough sunshine? Well, for any of you out there who might be gingers, right, what you have to keep in mind is don't go out in the sun long enough to burn. Go out in the sun every day based on the ability of your skin to tolerate. So if your skin burns after 15 minutes of exposure, go out for 10. If your skin burns after 30 minutes of exposure, go out for 25. Go out to the limitation of your skin's ability to tolerate the sun without sunscreen. Remember, sunscreens, aside from the fact that most of them contain carcinogens, sunscreens actually block vitamin D production from your skin. So when that UV light hits your skin, strikes your skin, that's how you make vitamin D. That's one of the ways we make vitamin D. So keep that in mind, that vitamin D is critical for a number of different metabolic functions, including blood sugar regulation, which is important for energy production. That's what we're talking about, energy. Remember, the sunshine that also, as it hits your lights, take the sunglasses off. A lot of you wear sunglasses when you go out, and you block that light from hitting your eyes. Remember, your eyes are part of your brain, and we want the sun to hit our eyes. Why? Because we're trying to make a substance called melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep regulator. So if you're one of those people that have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, then sunshine exposure is going to help your brain make melatonin more effectively, more efficiently. And that melatonin is going to help you be sleepy when it's time to go to sleep. It's one of the hormones that helps regulate, again, your circadian clock, your circadian rhythm, but it's also going to help keep you asleep throughout the night. So I can't emphasize those two that most people completely ignore because they just don't give them enough respect. So lots of sun exposure to the limit of your skin's ability to tolerate without burning. And number two, it's making sure that you're sleeping, particularly between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. But even more specifically, if you really want to dial it in, go to bed when the sun goes down, wake up when the sun comes up. And if you really want to dial it in even better, don't be scared of taking a nap. Now, a lot of people will dismiss the power of a nap. My advice is this, there's this phrase in the South called siesta, take your siesta. And this is basically, it's an after lunch nap. Why do people do that? Because when you eat food, all of your blood in your body rushes to your gut. And it does that on purpose. It's going to your gut to help you digest and process the meal you just consumed. So your blood is not wanting to focus and concentrate in your brain. It's wanting to go to your gut. That's why a lot of people get tired after they eat. So if you're one of those people and you feel like taking a nap after a meal, go lay down and take a nap. 15 to 20 minutes is a good kind of time frame for a siesta, but it's a great, great way to get a little bit of rest and get an energy bump in the afternoon. Because so many people go eat their lunch and then they're wiped out for the rest of the day because their bodies are trying to process the meal and their brains can't think while their guts are trying to process the meal. So that's really, really common to see that happen. Okay, let's get to some of the questions here. Let's see, Vicky, I gave up grains and sugar, and now I have zero energy. It appears I'm both insulin resistant and hypoglycemic. I have fat reserves that my body is not burning. What does my body need? So, Vicky, there's a lot of things that you can do better here. If you gave up grains and sugar and you still have zero energy, one of the first things that I would tell you to do is get your nutritional status checked. Go to a good functional medicine doctor and have them run a vitamin and mineral analysis on you, because sometimes what happens when you cut out carbohydrates, you could be missing certain nutrients. So when we cut out a lot of the carbohydrates from grains, what happens is our body might try to make a shift to burning fat as fuel. But let me give you some examples. So if your body does that, that's a process internally, biochemically, called beta oxidation. You have to break down fatty acids to be able to generate energy from them. And in order to do that, if you are deficient, for example, if you're deficient in vitamin C, it's going to be harder for your body to do beta oxidation. If you're deficient in carnitine, carnitine is an amino acid that takes and delivers fat into the part of the cell where the energy becomes generated. It's going to be really, really hard to generate that energy. So if you're eating a lot less carbohydrates or reducing your carbohydrates, sometimes there's this transitionary period where you cut out grains and sugars, and you're trying to teach your body to rely on fat as an energy, as an ability to burn that energy. You've got to make sure you have the right nutrients that help shuttle fat into the cell and into the mitochondria where that energy can be produced. Otherwise, you're going to be really, really tired. So step one, Vicky, is have your doctor run your nutritional status. Make sure you don't have those particular types of problems. Number two, this is very, very helpful for those that are having blood sugar problems. And it's one of those kind of ironic things. It's a catch-22, is that you're tired, you don't feel like exercising, and therefore you don't. But if you exercise, you get more energy. Well, some people are exercise intolerant, meaning if they try to exercise, it completely wipes them out. What I'd like you to try to do is either one, get you a rebounding trampoline, one of those little mini trampolines, and just spend about 5 minutes jumping in the afternoons or in the mornings, whenever you have the best level of energy to do it. What that's going to do is it's going to help your cerebrospinal fluid flow. It's going to help your blood flow. It's going to help your lymphatic flow. It's going to improve the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to your brain and to your heart and into your cells, so that they can get the nourishment and the nutrients that they need to start driving the energy production. So try those things first, because those are really super fundamental. Again, nutritional deficiencies can completely wreck a person's ability to drive the energy production within the cells. And if you've given up grains and sugar and you're somewhat hypoglycemic, those things can be very helpful. Now, one of the other things you might want to have that doctor kind of investigate is to see whether or not you have a yeast overgrowth. Some people who are going grain and sugar free have severe blood sugar problems and crashes, and have severe mood swings in irritability and malaise and fatigue as a result of the yeast. The yeast themselves actually want the sugar, they want the carbohydrates, so they will start dying off. And as they're dying off, because you're not feeding them, they're going to release some of their chemical compounds and toxins that make you feel really, really rough. And if you've got liver issues, or if you're not exercising regularly to circulate your lymphatic flow, then that yeast die-off, those chemical toxins don't get processed through your body through the bile. And there's something called enterohepatic circulation, which is one of the ways we detox. You don't want to get those toxins trapped between your liver and your gut and not getting them out of your body. So movement and motion, even if it's not severe activity like super high intense activity, but just short rebounding, again, can be very, very helpful for that. So you can also ask that doctor to check you for yeast overgrowth or yeast infections. Common places we'll see yeast issues are in the gut. We'll see them in the sinuses. Sometimes we'll see them on the skin. Sometimes we'll see them underneath the toenails. We talked a lot about this last week about yeast overgrowth. So if you missed that segment last week where we talked, go back and review that video. It's actually up on Dr. Peter Osborne Facebook page. So if you go there and like the page, you'll be able to access all those past videos and the one we talked about last week. Good question. Okay, next question. Don is asking, what about daylight savings time? You're giving very specific hours, so how does that work since our hours change twice a year? I hate daylight savings time. It doesn't change. That's why I gave the advice of your biological clock. So if you could follow sundown to sun up as a pattern, which again, it can be hard to do in the winter months, that's ideal. That is going to work out ideal. So I would try to hit as close to that as you can. In the winter months where you're going to be shortchanged is that it gets dark a lot earlier. But try to stay somewhat on the same schedule. Daylight savings time, for most adults, it wrecks them for a month. It sets them back for a month. So during that daylight savings period, one of the things it's best to do is try to get lots of daytime, early morning sunshine. If you can, if you live in a northern climate where there's not that availability, get you a light box. These light boxes, get something with at least 10,000 LUX, 10,000 lux power, and sit in front of that in the mornings for 20 minutes a day. And that's going to help kind of recalibrate your body to the circadian rhythm of that daylight savings pattern change. Okay, Rue Harrell. Let's see here. Rue, I wake up 3 times at night, at 1, 3, and 5, and then at 7. I am so exhausted, even if I take a nap. Rue, that sounds like, and again, it's hard for me to, I can't diagnose anything on a Facebook Live, obviously, but when you're waking up that frequently, for a lot of people, that's a melatonin deficiency. And melatonin deficiency, one of the most common solutions for that is every day get 20 to 30 minutes of direct sunshine without sunscreen or sunglasses, and that's going to help boost your melatonin production. Now, some people also have a zinc deficiency, and you need zinc, for your brain needs zinc to be able to make melatonin. So again, I'm going back to what I was talking about with Vicky, is you can have your doctor check your vitamin and mineral status too, to ensure that you are adequately nourished and have the capacity to be able to generate and drive melatonin production. Because again, you need zinc to be able to do that, among other nutrients, but zinc is one of the more important ones. So try that first. Now, one of the other reasons, this is important, I think it's important to divert just a little bit here. If you're waking up at 1, 3, and 5, some people will wake up frequently at night and it has nothing to do with melatonin. Their brains are actually trying to process through their problems. And so, think about it from this perspective, Rue. If you've got a lot of stress going on in your life, if maybe there's some big decisions, maybe you're worried about your husband or your children or something along those lines, you will actually wake up at night. Your brain will wake you up at night to try to help you focus and process on an emotional issue that needs to be dealt with or needs to be put to rest. And so our brains will use the night. Our brains will wake us up at night and use that nighttime as productive time to help us try to work through those issues. So if you have issues that psychological or emotional issues that are stress-based issues that you're trying to work through, sometimes waking up at night is a symptom of that. And you need to think about potentially how being up at night might actually help you spend a little bit more extra time processing that so that you can move on and then start getting a good quality night's sleep. Okay, so remember that sometimes being up at night, not necessarily a horrible thing if you've got those types of issues that your brain is trying to process you through. So listen to your body as well along that front. So one of the other things I'll see when people have that recurring waking cycle at night is B vitamin deficiencies. It's very, very common for B vitamin, especially vitamin B12 deficiency, especially vitamin B9, which is folate. Those two deficiencies can also cause kind of that wake up cycle throughout the night. So again, going back to what I said earlier, have that doctor, your local doctor, check you in those ways. Have them check you for those deficiencies. Okay. Let's see, another question. Sophia is asking, I have had tinnitus 7 years as a result of taking fluoroquinolones. Do you have any suggestions? Yes, I've seen this be the case. So those are medications that are actually ototoxic, meaning toxic to the ear. For those of you who don't know what tinnitus is, it's ringing in the ears. And one of the best things that you can do to recover from this particular type of poisoning is very high dose probiotic every day. And I'm talking about several hundred billion CFUs. Now, one of the products that I recommend, I'm going to type it in. It's called Ultrabiotic Defense. Ultrabiotic Defense, and you can pick that up if you go to glutenfreesociety.org, type in Ultrabiotic Defense. It's a powdered probiotic. One of the things you can do is add this powdered probiotic to your water, stir it up and drink it every night before you go to bed. It's a great probiotic for that, but it's going to help overcome you overcome that toxicity that you experience from that medication a little bit faster. So again, try that, and I would do it at least for 2 months. I've seen cases where it took 4, 5, 6 months of consistent use to really get a person to be able to overcome one of those types of toxicities. So hopefully that will help you. And chime in on our Facebook page, on our Dr. Osborne support group forum, and let us know if that worked for you. If you try that out, let us know if that worked for you. And right now, if you go to glutenfreesociety.org, don't forget to use this promo code. This is a promo code that just came out today. If you type in the promo code, just type in SPRING, SPRING, and that'll save you $10. So hopefully that's going to be helpful for you. All righty here. Let's see. Karen says hi. Hi, Karen from Sweden. Thanks for tuning in all the way from Sweden for us. Okay. Let's see. Jeannie is asking, my daughter gets cracks between her toes and when the toes are separated more, it cracks, splits more. I used to get the same thing as a kid, still do, but not as severe. Is this a sign of gluten issues or dairy issues? Yes, it can be. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is. A lot of times that toe cracking like that is a yeast issue. One of the best things that can be done for that type of toe cracking is as soon as your daughter gets home, have her take off her shoes and socks, let her walk around barefoot. If it's early enough, have her feet in the outdoor light. In other words, UV light exposure to the feet. If it's mold or fungus, remember mold loves dark, it loves wet, and that's what your feet are when they're shoved into a sock and a shoe. So a lot of times this cracking, especially if it's in between the toes, like the webs of the toes, can actually be a symptom of a yeast overgrowth or athlete's foot. And so that might be a very, very helpful thing. Now, as far as gluten issues, it's a possibility because, it could be gluten, but it could also be a fatty acid issue in the diet. Sometimes we'll see people that have an imbalance in their omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acid ratios, meaning that if they don't have enough omega-3 in their diet, then their skin will get really, really dry and crack really easy. So that's a possibility as well. But skin cracking can mean many different things. It can mean yeast overgrowth. It can mean early onset eczema, depending on how severe it is and depending on what the pattern of the skin cracking looks like. So it's a lot easier for me to know or better be able to help or guide you. If I had a picture, I could better be able to answer that. But hopefully that's helpful for you as you go give that a try. Okay, next question. Nancy just tuned in. Are gluten-free grains off the list? There's no such thing as a gluten-free grain. Great question. I'm glad you asked it. This is one of the biggest, in my opinion, one of the biggest perpetuated myths in all of the internet is that there are somehow gluten-free grains. Let's define gluten. For those of you who don't know, what is gluten? Gluten is the name of a family of proteins found in the seeds of grass. The seeds of grass are grains: wheat, barley, rye, oats, corn, sorghum, millet, teff, triticale, einkorn. There are a number of different grains, but they all contain gluten. Now, when the FDA or the food labeling laws, when they're trying to define gluten, they're not defining gluten as a family of proteins found in all grains. They're defining gluten as one protein called alpha-gliadin. This particular protein is only found in wheat, barley, and rye, and that's why the construence of the definitions exist. People go on a gluten-free diet, and they're not really on a gluten-free diet, and they continue to have persistent problems because they're still eating grain. They're eating corn, and they're eating rice, and they're eating millet, and they're eating sorghum. They're eating all these other grains, and they're still getting different kinds of glutens, and realize that these glutens are so similar. Many of them are so similar. Research studies, including studies that we've done here in our clinic, show that people that go on a gluten-free diet but don't cut grain out, go on a traditional gluten-free diet of wheat, barley, and rye-free but don't cut all the other grains out, they don't heal. They have persistent problems, persistent inflammation. They get some better. They do have some response, and one of the reasons why is that wheat, when you avoid wheat, it contains more gluten than any other form of grain. By concentration, wheat contains the protein in wheat, about 70% of that is gluten. So when you cut wheat out, you cut a ton of gluten out. But if you substitute it with rice and corn, you're still getting gluten, albeit less and a different form or a different type of gluten. Remember, there's over 1,000 forms of gluten, and they're all found in grains. There was a study published in 2010 identifying 400 new forms of gluten. 40 of them were more toxic than the gluten that the FDA considers called alpha-gliadin on your food label. So, hopefully that's helpful for you. You probably have been, if you're asking that question, you've probably been way off base as it relates to gluten. And one of the best things you can do, one of the smartest things you can do, is go read No Grain, No Pain. This is a book, and I wrote all about how the different grains contain different kinds of gluten. And you're going to want to read that because it's going to get you educated on what you need to understand, what gluten actually is, where gluten is actually found, what are the hidden ways they can sneak gluten into your food, what are the terms that you want to look for on a food label that don't say gluten or don't say wheat, barley, rye, oats, corn, rice, etc. What are those sneaky, tricky terms that food manufacturers like to basically add to your food, and you don't know what's in it, right? So go read the book because it'll go far. It'll take you very, very far in getting you educated. Okay. Let's see here. Teresa Duggar. I'm a female marathon runner and have developed symptoms aligning with the female triad. I have no period. I am hormonally imbalanced. My doctor suggested birth control among a few other pharmaceuticals. I've been taking inositol and it seems to be helping, but I'm curious what you might suggest. I feel like I've hit a training plateau because of lack of energy. I'm mostly paleo-vegetarian as well. Well, first of all, Teresa, if you're a marathon, let's see here, I read that correctly, you're a marathon runner. I want you to understand something, and I don't say this to bust your bubble or anything like that, but marathon running is extremely unhealthy. And let me define that, okay? These marathon, ultra marathon people that do 13 plus miles all the way up to 26, 28 miles, it's not a healthy thing to train for, and it's not a healthy thing to do consistently. You actually put your body in a severe state of catabolic breakdown the longer you train for and perform marathons. That's why if you look at any marathon runner, you don't see any of them that are well muscled. You see a lot of them that look sickly, they look frail, they can't keep their weight on. And in females, it's very, very common to see a loss of cycle or a loss of period because your body's in a catabolic breakdown state. It doesn't have the resources to lose the blood during the cycle, so it shuts it down. And this will cause all kinds of hormonal disruption as well. My advice to you is kind of maybe reanalyze. If you love to run and if that's just something you're passionate about, reanalyze the quantity and the distance that you're doing and maybe tailor it back and find some other types of exercises that aren't going to put you in a catabolic state quite as much. I recommend if you want to be an advanced athlete, you can get involved in something like a CrossFit, or you can get involved in some form of high intensity interval training where you're doing runs sometimes, but you're not doing these super mega runs consistently every day of the week. It's just really, really hard for a person to maintain good quality health. You look statistically at marathon runners, they have some of the highest incidences of heart disease. They have some of the highest incidences of dying from a heart attack. And that, to me, that says something. And this has actually been really, really well studied. A number of doctors, especially at the University of Colorado, study athletic performance and study athletic longevity and what exercises that humans genetically are actually capable of doing consistently over time. If you were just doing a marathon and having a one-off, kind of I'm going to do this marathon because I'm turning 35 and I want to run this marathon, I'd say go for it. But if you're doing it consistently because you want to run marathons, I would say really reevaluate why you're doing that and why you would want to do that, because there's really no way around it. If you do it consistently for long enough, it will eat away at your body, it will eat away at your muscle storage, and it will create a catabolic state that causes a hormone imbalance that's going to leave you frailer at the end of it. So I would just rethink that. And if you're mostly paleo-vegetarian, I'm not sure I know what that means, mostly paleo-vegetarian. Does that mean you eat grains sometimes? Does that mean you sometimes eat meat? Because also one of the big issues, if you're not eating meat and you're running marathons, there's no way you're going to keep the protein levels up enough to keep your hormones balanced. Remember, all of your hormones are made from protein, and all the vegetables in the world don't contain the essential amino acids that in enough of a ratio. You'd have to really be smart with your diet to successfully pull off a vegetarian-based diet and run marathons. To me, that would require somebody watching your nutrition very carefully, maintaining and monitoring your amino acid status so that you don't become deficient in certain things, because a true vegetarian diet is not going to have, I'll say a true vegan diet, a vegetarian diet, depending on what kind of vegetarian, if you're eating fish or if you're using dairy or if you're using eggs, You can get complete proteins from those foods, but you can't get a complete protein from just vegetables alone. So those are also just things to consider. Good question. I hope it was helpful for you. Okay, Nancy's chiming in. I wanted to add swimming to my exercise routine. My son tells me to avoid swimming in chlorinated pools. What do you think? I think it depends on how much you're swimming, and I think it depends on whether or not the chlorinated pool is indoors. If you're swimming in an indoor pool, bad idea, because there's nowhere for the chlorine to go. So it all sits on the surface of the water. So as you're coming out of the water to take deep breaths, you're just breathing in chlorine gas en masse, and that's a bad idea. Now, if you've got an outdoor pool, that chlorine has a place to go. It dissipates in the atmosphere. Are you still going to get chlorine exposure? Yes. Where I would deter you from using swimming as a major form of exercise on a regular daily basis is if you've got a thyroid issue or you're struggling with a thyroid problem, because chlorine is also known as a halide. So it falls in this classification of metals that compete with iodine in your thyroid gland to be able to make thyroid hormone. So if you're overexposed to chlorine, you could actually push iodine out of your thyroid and make it harder for your body to produce thyroid hormone, which is a very bad idea, because remember, the thyroid hormone sets the metabolic rate of the body, and that's a very, very big part of energy production is whether or not our thyroid is functioning. Good question. Okay, next one. Sarah is asking, whenever I eat any gluten-free food, my stomach gets hurt. Why does that happen? Go back and listen to what I just said 5 minutes ago. If you're eating gluten-free food, in essence, if it's packaged gluten-free food, it's probably not gluten-free. Two, it's probably full of GMO and sugar, so it's not good for you regardless. And if it's a rice-based product, it's probably full of cadmium and arsenic. And if it's corn, it's probably got mercury in it and other kind of mold toxins and mycotoxins. Go back and read No Grain, No Pain. I'll say that again. Go back and read No Grain, No Pain, because that book will spell out what it means to be gluten-free for you. And it also spell out how to recover from those digestive issues over long bouts of gluten-induced damage. Lisa, I have had urine sample that shows high in nitrates. Recent culture came back negative. Any idea what high nitrates is from? Well, I mean, you can get nitrates. You can eat dietary nitrates. If you eat a lot of beets, a lot of people that do beet juicing, you get tons of dietary nitrates in beet and some of the other vegetables. You can get nitrates in a lot of processed food as well. So it just depends on what you're eating. But high nitrates can typically mean an infection, can mean that. They don't have to mean that. So what I might do is retest it and see if it comes back again high. But when I retest it, I would do so fasting. So I do so after a 10 or 12-hour fast and see if those nitrates are still coming back elevated. Good questions. Okay, Misty's asking, can I discuss my experience with scleroderma patients? Success. Scleroderma, it's an autoimmune condition, and you've got to be super careful with people with scleroderma, because a lot of people in the autoimmune community recommend high doses of vitamin D, and with scleroderma patients, you don't want to do that because their kidneys can be affected, and if you go too high with vitamin D, you can actually put them into a calcium toxicity and kill them. So the best thing I can do is say, if you've got a scleroderma issue, you need to find somebody who knows what they're doing to help you deal with that in a functional medicine manner. But scleroderma is an autoimmune disease, and so it falls under the similar categories of all autoimmune diseases in terms of causation. There's 4 general causes of autoimmune disease from a biochemical perspective. The first is infection, the second is food, the third is chemicals, and the fourth is vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So get with somebody to have those 4 things tested, because if you don't, you'll just be guessing and wondering and hoping. And the medicines that rheumatologists and other docs give for scleroderma, they're horrific. I mean, they're pain-based medications, anti-inflammatories, and immune suppressants that wreck the gut, cause leaky gut, cause iron deficiency, cause vitamin C deficiency, shut down the immune system's normal response, increase the risk of cancers, increase the risk of developing other types of infection. It's just not a route I would recommend anybody go. It's because the outcomes are poor. So that's in a nutshell. But scleroderma isn't difficult to treat. You just have to, the earlier you can catch it and the earlier you can do something about it, the better. And it always, you've got to address the diet and you've got to address the lifestyle. Okay, Jackie's asking, what's a quick first aid fix if gluten has been eaten accidentally and the gut feels inflamed. A quick fix is to do a vitamin C flush. Vitamin C flush is where you take higher doses of vitamin C, and it's best done in a powdered form. Otherwise, you can't get enough pills in you to actually perform a flush, because most people, it takes about 20 to 30 grams to actually do a vitamin C flush. But you take about 6 grams of vitamin C in water, mix in about 3 ounces of water every 15 minutes until you have a watery stool, and that will flush any gluten out of you that you accidentally got exposure to. But the other thing it does, vitamin C is an anti-inflammatory, and it helps heal the gut. And a number of studies in celiac patients have shown they won't heal unless they add extra vitamin C in. So that's one thing you can do. One of the other things you can do, if you feel like you might be getting accidental exposure from gluten, it's simple. Take a digestive enzyme before the meal. The one I recommend is called Gluten Shield. Gluten Shield is a formulation that I created to help people digest hard to digest carbohydrates and nuts and other difficult to digest types of foods, but also there's a battery of enzymes in it that help to degrade gluten. So use that as a prophylactic or preventative before eating out at any restaurant, before traveling, and keep a bag or keep a bottle in your bag, in your suitcase, or in your backpack. And that way, if you have to eat anyone else's food, OPF, other people's food, that you're protecting yourself preemptively from getting that gluten-induced damage. Okay, let's go to next question. Kristen Larson, 10-year-old son was just diagnosed with Hashimoto's. I have it too. After a battle with meningitis, he has been gluten-free since the diagnosis, about 3 months. I have not yet taken him off grains because I'm worried about him getting enough to eat. He is still learning to like veggies, not a huge problem at this point, or not a huge variety at this point. Should I take the plunge and get him off grains altogether? Well, Kristen, that's a great question. In my opinion, yes, you should. Because I've never seen a case where a patient was diagnosed with Hashimoto's where they were not also gluten sensitive. Not in 16 years, and I've seen probably 1,000 cases. So, that being said, the likelihood that he's gluten sensitive is probably pretty strong. Now, back to your comment that you haven't done it because you're worried about him not getting enough to eat. Look, rip the Band-Aid off, get him dialed in, because eating poison, are you worried about him not getting enough to eat, or are you worried about him eating poison? Because if he's actually gluten sensitive, that's what's happening, is he's eating a poison. So think of it like that, like change the way you're thinking about it. Don't think about, I'm worried about him getting enough to eat. Think about it as every time he's eating poison, right? So let's think about it from that perspective, and that might help you kind of push into that diet change a little bit faster. Look, it's a learning curve. A lot of people struggle with it because they don't know what recipes to make or what kind of textures or foods. They don't have kind of the experience there. So dive into it. Rip the Band-Aid off, dive into it. Go get some good cookbooks. There's several good cookbooks. You can look up Diana Koulian at realhealthyrecipes.com. You can look up Against All Grain, Daniel Walker. These ladies put together some really, really great resources for people to follow so that they can break through that gluten-free learning curve a lot faster. Okay. Let's see here. Marianne, do you have any suggestions for how to increase fatigue when I have chronic Lyme disease? I think what you may mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, do I have any suggestions for how to increase energy? I don't think you'd want to increase your fatigue. When I have chronic Lyme disease, severe allergies, and I've had sinusitis for a year, the allergies and or sinusitis has made it difficult to sleep. I take allergy medications without much help, inhalers, antihistamines. Well, there's part of the problem is the antihistamines. They're going to suck the energy right out of you. Antihistamines block histamine. Histamin's a neurotransmitter in your brain that gives you energy, and that's why they can create fatigue. So you got to get rid of the antihistamines. Talk with your doctor about it if they're prescribed antihistamines. But if you're having severe allergies that need to be controlled with antihistamines, then try looking into some natural antihistamines. Vitamin C, bromelain, quercetinase, or quercetin. These are all natural antihistamines. I have a product that might be helpful for you, Marianne, on that front. It's called Allergies. And if you go online to glutenfreesociety.org, just search for Allergies. And what you would do with this is take 2 of these pills every couple of hours to help. What it does is it helps stabilize your mast cells. The mast cells are the white blood cells in your bloodstream that secrete histamine. and make you feel all these allergic, stuffy symptoms that you're experiencing. So doing something like an Allergies might be extremely helpful. It's a mixture of vitamin C, bromelain, and quercetinase or quercetin. If the doctor's wanting you to take an acid blocker, that's not going to be the solution either. Acid blockers, depending on the kind, some of them actually block histamine in the gut. So not only are you blocking histamine for the brain, but you're blocking it in the gut. Look, I get a second opinion. Go find a good functional medicine doctor to work with, because this is what you've got is a really, really big issue. I mean, if you've got chronic Lyme disease, the chances that you probably have a biofilm, the bacteria like Lyme produce a biofilm, and oftentimes they colonize inside the sinus cavities. So it's very possible you have a colonized layer of infections in your sinus cavities. And there's some specific swab testing, culture testing, where you can actually measure for that. If your doctor's familiar with it, it's a nasal culture. You take a Q-tip up both sides, up both nostrils deep, and you get a swab, and what could be tested for is different types of infectious microorganisms, including mold and yeast, but also biofilms. Because if there's biofilms present, an antibiotic will never kill an infection if it's protected by its own biofilm, and you have to take something that will break those biofilms down. So get with somebody who knows what they're doing. Best thing I could tell you to do, because there's too many things going on here, and you've got to have somebody who's willing to guide you in the right direction, Marianne. You might also visit the Dr. Peter Osborne Facebook page. I'd encourage you to do that. I posted a video a few days ago on overcoming autoimmunity, and a lot of the information in that video would help because it would apply directly to your situation. So go and check that out as well. Just go to Facebook, and it's Dr. Peter Osborne, and type that in, and go like the page, and you can get access to that video. Okay. Okay, Melissa's asking, do I have advice on detoxifying kids who have been vaccinated? Yeah, that's a big one. One of the best things that you can do is infrared saunas. Sweat, lots of sweating. But with kids, you got to be careful not to dehydrate them, and with kids, you got to be careful not to overheat them. The type of sauna that I recommend is actually, it encloses the body, but it keeps the head out of the heat, so that you don't overheat the brain, and you don't get them overheating too quickly. But infrared works really, really well as detoxification. There are a couple of other things that can be done just kind of naturally, and one of them is vitamin C. Very high doses of vitamin C very consistently. You probably want to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 8 grams a day. Again, it depends on the size of the child. If they're a young child, 10 years or older, and they weigh 100 pounds or so, you can get up really 5-10 grams a day pretty easy. But if they're smaller, you want to maybe back down the dose just a little bit more. But yeah, that's one where I would recommend if there are symptoms like autism or this Asperger's or any learning disorders as a result of vaccination. That's where you really want to work with a doctor. Again, I say this a lot, don't go it alone, because there's too many variables and too many factors. And you can actually try to detoxify somebody and really hurt them in the process, especially if their liver's not functioning well, or if their gallbladder is sluggish, or if their bowel movements aren't functioning. Because you'd start detoxing somebody who's not sweating well, who doesn't have regular bowel movements, who's not secreting bile effectively. You're just going to recirculate the poisons in their body over and over and over again, and that can really, really hurt them. So, don't go it alone. Look for somebody who can help you out with that. Claudia is asking, isn't most vitamin C made from corn, and even worse, mostly GMO? Yeah, it is, Claudia. I'm glad you said that, because I didn't mention that before. If you want a vitamin C that's not GMO, that's actually organic, and that is not derived from corn, go buy Detox C. Detox C is, again, go to glutenfreesociety.org. Detox C is the name of the product. You can get it in pills, or you can get it in powder, and that's what I actually use to do vitamin C flushes with. But it is completely grain and corn-free. It is actually organic. It is non-GMO, and that's what I would recommend that you use. Yeah, a lot of those products are made from corn-based vitamin C. Synthetic vitamin C's. Okay, Dean, I have arthritis. I have osteo and rheumatoid arthritis with celiac disease. Feeling down already. Where should I start to start feeling better? Maybe that's a win. should I start feeling better? I do gluten-free food sometimes, and I still eat corn and rice. I'm sure I'm eating out at least 2 times a week. Oh, by the way, I have psoriasis. So, wow, Dean, man, I'm sorry. I feel for you, buddy. You've got psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. Celiac is autoimmune. Rheumatoid is autoimmune. You've got already 3 autoimmune diseases. You've got to go read No Grain, No Pain, buddy. If you haven't read it and started following it, that's number 1. Get on that right now. You need to get on it right now. You need to get on it yesterday, especially if you're still eating corn and rice and some of these other things. You need to stop eating out. I'll just be very blunt with you. You've got to quit eating out, because when you eat out, you're eating glyphosate. You're eating genetically modified food. You're eating pesticides. You're eating mercury. You're eating corn sugar. You're eating genetically modified soy. You're eating highly processed dairy derived from both recombinant bovine growth hormone induced cows. You're eating all this stuff that you don't even realize that you're eating, and it's horrific, horrific, horrific for you. And if you're going to recover from autoimmune disease, you've got to dial it in. No Grain, No Pain. Okay, chapter 7 and 8 are all about their phase 1 and phase 2 of the diet changes that you want to make right away. So go read that book and start applying it. And once you do, let me know. Tune back in with me. Check back in with me on the Facebook page and let me know how you're doing. And join us next time for Facebook Live as well, and let us know how you're doing. But get going on that diet plan. Vicky says hi. Hi, Vicky from Bay City. All right. We got somebody, Samina from Pakistan. Hello, Samina. Let's see here. Desiree, hello from Battle Creek, Michigan. That's the home of Kellogg's cereal company. Not my favorite friends. Angel Flores, let's see here. Question coming in. I have been on a gluten-free diet for about 7 years, but my headaches won't go away. When I was younger, they did after eliminating gluten for 3 days, but not anymore. What can I do? Angel, you've got to understand that migraine headaches, I'm going to assume they're migraine, maybe they're not migraine. There's a lot of reasons you can have headaches. There's structural imbalances in the muscles. Some people sit at a desk all day and their head's forward and they get a lot of tension in the muscles. Some people have vitamin and mineral deficiencies, magnesium deficiency. Here are the vitamins and minerals that are the most linked to headache recurrence frequencies. Okay, number 1 is vitamin B12. Number 2 is magnesium. Number 3 is vitamin B2. Number 4 is CoQ10. So those 4 nutrients, I would absolutely have my doctor measure them for me and make sure I'm not lacking them, because those are actually been very well studied as migraine and headache prophylactic nutrients. So it could be that you're deficient in one or many of those nutrients. The other thing that I would suggest is, if, again, depending on how you define gluten, if you're defining gluten the way everyone else is defining it and not the way that we define it, at Gluten-Free Society, then you're going to have a major, major problem that continues to persist. So if you read, again, I'm gonna plug my book again. Go read No Grain, No Pain, and if you're not really gluten-free as defined in that book, then you need to get it dialed in, and you'll watch what happens. Your headaches will start going away. I have not yet seen a person with chronic headaches where they didn't go away if they dialed the diet in right and took care of underlying nutritional deficit. Okay, Samina's chiming in. Ever since I became gluten-free, I'm facing complication. A lot of bloating, stomach ache, skin rash, fatigue, numbness, tingling, hair falling out. But that's not going gluten-free. It depends on how you're going gluten-free. A lot of people go gluten-free the wrong way. If you go to our Facebook page and you look at one of the first Facebook Lives I did a couple of weeks ago, I talked about why the gluten-free diet fails a lot of times, and that would be what I would recommend that you watch, is go watch that video. The problem probably, or could be, again, it's hard for me to know because there's variables in this, is that if you're still bloated, are you eating gluten-free products that have corn, rice, genetically modified ingredients? Are you eating a lot of substitute products that are hard to digest? A lot of people go heavy, heavy, heavy nuts and seeds, and those are really hard to digest, beans, nuts, and seeds. And so if you went gluten-free, but you incorporated so much more of those things, and your gut's trying to recover just from being damaged by gluten, then it's going to cause a lot of gas and bloating and digestive problems, and that's going to show up in the skin as well. But you also might have your doctor test you for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because that oftentimes can create that bloating sensation along with skin rashes and along with hair loss and numbness and tingling. So a lot of different possibilities there. hard to direct you in exactly the right direction, without having more detailed information. Oh, Dean, just ordered it, and I live in Italy. Good job, Dean. Man, let me know how that turns out. I'm really looking forward to you sharing your story of success with me. Okay. Hi, Susan. Susan's saying hi. Marcia is asking, since I went grain-free, I feel 1,000 times more energetic and have no migraines. Thank you for saying that, Marcia. That's what I think that's what Angel maybe needed to hear. That may be what some of the other people listening needed to hear. It is an absolute truth, and that if you understand what gluten really is and what is really in grains and how that links to headaches, you will feel 1,000 times more energetic, and your headaches will most likely go away unless there's something else causing them. So thank you for chiming in, Marcia. Great to have you here. Okay, Linda, why do I have a hard time sweating in an infrared sauna? And what may I do to increase sweat? Drink more water, lots of water, stay really, really hydrated. So drinking water, and then, you've got to give it time. Sometimes it's just an issue. Your body's not detoxifying, and the sweating mechanism is really shut down. And part of that is because somebody's in what's called sympathetic overdrive, meaning they're so anxious and they're so amped up and they have so much anxiety. And so their sweat glands won't turn on. So what some people do is they meditate, they relax, they calm down, okay, or pray or do prayer. There's a lot of different ways to calm down and relax, but ask yourself, Linda, what kind of person are you? If you're really high, anxious, type A type personality, you're going to have a harder time sweating. So meditation, prayer, calm down, get in the unit, stay in it maybe longer if you can tolerate the longer heat, and stay consistent with it every day, okay, until you start breaking a sweat. Once you break through that, you're going to sweat like crazy. That's what we tend to see happen to people who get into their saunas. Okay, Tara, let's see here. Chronic and stubborn toenail fungus in an otherwise healthy individual. Does this require a very strict Canada diet? And if so, what are your thoughts? Yeah, it might. And I would say that's a good place to start. I would also say get UV light exposure on your feet, maybe even a little bit of hydrogen peroxide bathing on the feet. Those are all strategies that can be done. But the other thing is that chronic toenail infection in the foot is often a sign of immune weakness as well. So have a good functional medicine doctor do a good nutritional workup on you, testing your immune function, testing your nutritional status so that you can support your immune system to better be able to battle, an infection. Remember, your skin, as part of your immune system, has proteins and things within it that it can excrete. It can help you battle yeast infection in the toes. But if you don't have the right nutrients and your skin's not functioning well, then you're not going to have that benefit. Okay, Terry, let's see here. Hi, Dr. Osborne. Celiac and have been gluten-free for 6 years. My eyebrows are falling out. Toenails are falling off, and a rash on my shin that won't go away. I'm extremely tired and not sleeping well. Help. 60 years old. Okay, Terry. Question is, are you true gluten-free or are you traditional gluten-free? Again, I've said this a number of times during this live cast. If you haven't read No Grain, No Pain, go start there and follow protocol in the book. Follow phase 1 and phase 2 diet. And if that doesn't work, get on the next live cast. So go do that for 30 days. If that's not starting to help you and you don't start seeing that rash go away and you don't start feeling better, come back and re-ask me that question and we can brainstorm a little bit better for you. Chase, I have IBS, constipation, fibromyalgia is under control. My IBS is chronic and I've tried everything, more fiber, Garden of Life probiotics. My health food store recommended a large dose of vitamin C, which causes loose bowels. Yes, it can. It does help, but not consistent. I stopped eating sugar and all flour. No change other than a good health decision and taking apple cider vinegar. If you're chronically constipated, it's very possible that your stomach lining has been damaged as a result of years of gluten exposure. One of the best things that you can try is a supplement. I'm going to type the name of it in for you. It's called Ultra Acid. Ultra Acid it can be very helpful to help people who are struggling with chronic constipation because it's a source of acid that will help you break down your food. The other thing that I would say, and again, I'm not saying that I'm a major proponent of everyone going vegetarian, but some people do better on a more vegetarian-like diet, and this is a genetic thing. And you're not my patient. I didn't test you for that, but it's something that you could possibly try is reducing your meat intake because meat can be really hard to digest if you have low stomach acid, and it can cause when meat gets in your gut and it's hard to digest and you have low stomach acid, it can create constipation. But the meat putrefies, it rots in your gut, and that can create all kinds of problems. And they can also tend to start showing up in the skin. So try that first. Go to glutenfreesociety.org and look up ultra acid. And what you want to do is take anywhere between 2 and 6 of those before you eat, and then look at maybe potentially reducing your meat intake for a while and see if that doesn't help you. Misty's asking how I deal with food addiction, people who are addicted to food. Look, no different than anyone else. The person who's got an addiction has to first admit that they have a problem with an addiction. And if they don't make that admission, then they can't be helped. It's no different than an alcoholic. So patients in my office, and they're willing to admit that it's a problem, that's step one. And beyond that, we guide them through the process. We hold their hand through the process. We give them things and do things with them that help break through that cycle of addiction. So, but the first step is that they have to be willing to admit that they even have an addiction. A lot of people aren't really ready or willing to do that, and those people cannot be helped until they do that. Okay, I can see that we're coming to the end of the time here. Linda's asking, this is a long shot. I have had my MVP mitral valve prolapse since the 20s. I'm now 67, need an MVP replacement within a year. Is there anything I can do to prevent this? I don't know. That's a good question. It is a long shot, but I would say it's been my experience that a lot of people who have mitral valve prolapse actually have a pretty severe problem with gluten. So, I mean, I would try some diet change first if you haven't already. I'd get with a functional medicine doctor and try some diet change. But if the cardiologist is telling you that if you don't replace the valve, that it's going to really impact you and potentially hurt you, that's a sticky situation. And I think I would definitely change your diet though and see how well you're doing and if that offers you any solution. But in this case, it's been going on for 47 years, and sometimes 47 years worth of damage is not going to be corrected in a couple of months. And you have to give it a little bit longer. But if you're in a situation where you don't have more time, then it's really hard to make. It's a judgment call. You might try getting another opinion from another cardiologist just to see what he says. Last question, and then I got to wrap it up. I have IBS with constipation and fibromyalgia, which is under control. I think I just answered this question. I think I did. Yep, same question. Okay. Clyde is asking to post the link to the supplements. Look, I have a store at gluten-free-society.org. If you go there, just hit the shop button and there's a supplement tab there, and you just go there and everything there that we do is designed to help people. It's designed to help people find real meaningful solutions and real answers in getting supplements that are high quality. So you can go there and visit that. Okay. Last question for real, no more after this. Lyme and co-infections, multiple sclerosis, adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, just some of the diagnoses over the past 35 years. Can't detox, don't sweat, sleep 2 hours a day, gluten-free, but eat a little gluten. I guess from this new info on gluten, I think adrenal fatigue constitutes the majority of symptoms severe. So understand, Liz, if you're eating a little bit of gluten, you're wrecked. You're not gonna make it anywhere. You're not gonna recover. You've got to go gluten-free. So I'm going to say the same thing to you that I said to so many other people. Go buy No Grain, No Pain and follow the phase 1 and phase 2 protocol for 30 days. Come back on the next Facebook Live and tune in and let us know how you're doing. Okay, these were great questions. This is Dr. Osborne for Friday Live on Facebook, and I am signing out. You guys have a wonderful weekend and a happy Easter.